How's it going, people? What a cracking morning it is. Again, as always, Thursday morning. How you doing? Thank you very much for joining me on the show this morning. My breakfast show today. Very excited about this one, people. Very excited indeed. Got a lot to get in today, okay? We're going to see how we go. Try and get this all in for you. Because, try my best. Hope you're well anyway. Thank you very much for tuning into Source FM this very nice morning. Although, well, I'm saying nice. It's a bit chilly, of course, but could be worse, right? Got no snow. That's good or bad, depending on, how you feel about snow. I'm personally, a tiny bit disappointed, just a little bit of snow, I know it makes travel irritating, but, just maybe a little bit. When we've all finished work, maybe a bit then we'll be all right, just a bit Christmassy, isn't it? Anyway, very good morning to you. What have we got on the show for you today? Well, I'm very excited to announce we have the return of one of our very special guests, who's been on a show, a while back now. And big news, right? Because this is show number 30. Oh, yes, show number 30. 30th live show for you people. Anyway, we have Honey Lancaster James will be joining us again today. Very popular media spokesperson, psychologist, life coach. She's well known, actually, for her work on Big Brother. Here she is, saying hello again. Just before we start, it's a pleasure to talk to you again. Had you on the show a while back talking about bad breath.
Yes, I remember that. That was a while ago.
Yeah, ages ago.
Here to talk about something a little bit, perhaps a little bit less sensitive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a pleasure to have you back. So how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm lovely, yeah. I'm well, thank you, yeah. I wonder if
keeping warm? The weather's turned a bit chilly.
Yeah, I'm all right, actually. The good thing is I'm feeling festive. We set the tree up last night, so...
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I get the
good.
tree out pretty much straight after bonfire night. Well, no, maybe not that early, but as early as I can get away with.
No, it's fine. You're allowed to reveal that secret. We all know that's when it happens, so that's fine.
Just don't broadcast it.
No. I'll edit that bit out. Very warm welcome to you, honey. Thank you very much indeed for joining us again. We also have, big news, proper celeb on the show today as well. We have this fantastic lady joining us.
Hi, it's Rochelle Humes.
Yes, Rochelle is on the show to talk to us. You're going to find this section rather amusing, I think, actually. Chatting to Rochelle, actually, about her, the British public. We actually have, apparently, some rather amusing, a bit unusual, actually, last-minute shopping habits. She'll be revealing those, along with her own shopping habits now, and also we're going to be touching on something very important. Now, Dan, a regular commenter on the show, actually, he messages in fairly often. And one thing which we had a big disagreement on, right, was whether Rod Stewart's Christmas album is fantastic. And, of course I think it is. It's marvellous, right? We'll see what Rochelle thinks, okay? Because if Rochelle agrees with me, then I'm sorry, Dan. It's all over for you, mate, because there's no way that you can possibly argue against Rochelle, okay? Right, well, we'll see anyway. We'll see what she thinks of that a bit later. Also, very happy to announce as well, got some lovely M&S cocktails to be trying as well. I tried them live, actually, in a interview with Maddie Lovett, the products developer who was responsible for putting these cocktails out there in M&S stores UK-wide. And also got Rebecca Seal, food and drink expert, on the show as well to chat about cocktails at Christmas. So if you're kind of a cocktail person, but you've never kind of gone into the world of cocktails of Christmas, I don't know, maybe you're feeling a bit shy, I don't know. But they're here to help you anyway. So that's it for the kind of entertainment and fun parts of the show. I mean, I'm saying, these are the fun parts, but even more fun is going to come straight after that, actually. We're going to delve into a bit of science, actually. Very, very pleased indeed to announce that we have Dr. Alex Massoudi on the show later. He's absolutely fantastic, okay? So actually, in this interview, chatting all about his work, actually. And this actually came off the back of this chat with Honey Lancaster James that I was having, in which she's actually reacting to this recent survey by Purina, the pet company, talking a little bit, or at least thinking, that one of these kind of opinions going around at the moment is perhaps, this rise in AI use. Think in particular about, there's lots of AI products even coming out. Of course, not true AI, if you like, but we've got lots of these AI emulations of kind of interactions coming out, even now on the market now, and she was basically thinking about this, and imagining this going towards in the future. What if we start to replace our pets with AI emulations of them, and AI emulations of those interactions? And this actually got me thinking about this kind of this kind of popular opinion might have come across this before or thought about it before, about this technological advancement. There's some ideas about the kind of advent of true AI, leading to this kind of technological event horizon, if you like. So beyond this point, you have this true AI, which is, perhaps capable, in the future, capable of, improving upon itself. You kind of almost then have almost like a biological system then, which is capable of very rapid evolution. One of these ideas is that perhaps technology in the future might take off at this kind of unparalleled, unprecedented rate, and kind of leave us behind, if you like. This is one of these kind of ideas, technological kind of revolution, and this event horizon, and got me thinking about that. So I thought, well, let's talk a little bit about some of the if there's any kind of scientific things to think about behind that. And Alex actually, he works on cultural evolution, and one of the things which he's actually really interested in is technology. Technology as a trait that he can look at. He can actually look at scientifically. So this is fantastic. So we had him on the show to talk about this. We delve into all of his kind of work, and where else could you say that we're about to discuss memes, right? We're going to talk scientifically about memes in a second, and I think you're going to really like that section, so do stay on the show for that. So that's some science towards the end. We've also got Emily Duncan. Very pleased to have Emily join us as well later. She's going to do a live call-in for us a bit later on in the show, talking about microplastics and the work that she does. She's a researcher from here on campus, actually, the Cornwall campus, University of Exeter, and she works in this area, actually. Microplastics, they're kind of back in the news again at the moment because they're actually featured. And actually, big thanks to Tony Hare. Actually, he was chatting to me about this the other day, and he was saying he caught this the last episode of Blue Planet, and in that actually they were the recent Blue Planet 2, and actually they were talking about in the last episode, of course, the big issue that is plastic pollution, and microplastics, of course, is all part of that. Anyway, we'll be talking to Emily a little bit about microplastics, why they're such a big concern for ecologists and biologists and really anybody. She'll be explaining a little bit about her work. Then, if we have time, actually, I'd really like as well to play one of these older sections. You might have caught this on an earlier show. If you didn't, though, this is an interview with the Surface Against Sewage Chief Exec Hugo Tagholm. Now, actually, they recently, they were really they're currently trying to really press this issue of plastic pollution. This is a charity, actually, all about helping to clean up coastlines. And this, they actually built this, they call it the Wasteland Warship, and it literally was a ship built out of plastic waste that had just been pulled off UK beaches. And I think that is kind of the perfect demonstration. It's quite a grim reminder, actually. That was just a tiny portion of the amount of waste that was just collected by volunteers, over a very short time period as well. It is a tiny portion. You make this huge battleship out of the plastic that they'd picked up, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about his work, the work of the charity, and also how you can begin to get involved with doing your bit for reducing plastic waste and plastic pollution, if you find that interesting. So, packed out show. See how far we get with this morning, people. Thank you very much for joining me again. Now, going to kick off, actually. Well, I'm going to have to kick off with this fine fellow. Fantastic that we chatted to him recently. Really, really, really excited about this. Ross Noble. Now, Ross actually has a TV show out just now, actually. So it aired for the first time last week. It is being repeated, though. So if you missed it last time, you will be able to check it out at a later date. Do just check the Dave website. So it's on Dave. It's called Off Road, and actually it sees Ross challenge one of the toughest, probably the toughest motorsports event in the world, the oldest motorsports event in the world as well. It's called Off Road. Let's chat to Ross first. I'm going to start off with this. He's got a cracking song request as well. He can tell you a little bit about his show, about his work. Also, I do get to chat a little bit about Stitches. That's my favourite film, actually. If anyone's seen Stitches, then you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, enough from me for now. Let's move over to Ross. Join me in the studio afterwards, and we're going to hear a bit from Rochelle Humes. So enjoy, people.
Hello there, this is Ross Noble here, and I'm on this show right now.
Welcome, good listeners. We have Ross right here with us. I can hear the man live. He's loud and clear. Fantastic. Welcome, Ross. Now, I'm just going to, let's get started with that picture that I just mentioned a second ago then. This picture of you getting a bike up a vertical incline, basically. It's a vertical stream, and you're getting a bike up it somehow. And this is the kind of thing, I imagine, which we're going to be seeing a bit more of in Off-Road, which premieres tonight, of course, on Dave at 8.
That's right, yeah. it's a show about it's sort of the antidote to all the Joanna Lumley across Norway on a pogo stick, all those sorts of shows. It's it's kind of it's me taking on the Scottish 6-day trial, which is this event takes place over a week in the Highlands of Scotland, and it's just about riding some of the most sort of difficult terrain that you can on a motorcycle. And basically, I mean, if you're into motorcycles, you'll enjoy it. But if you're not, if you just like watching people being slowly, mentally, and physically
people suffer,
just broken, then it's ideal,
Yeah, if you just want to tune in to see yourself becoming a broken man, then you can check it out.
Exactly. It's for people who are fans of mine, but also people who don't like me as well. It's a win-win in television terms.
Wow, you're catering to all audiences here. I'm impressed.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Yeah. And this is actually, I believe I'm correct in saying, this is the oldest motorcycle trials event in the world, isn't it? The Scottish 6 Days trial.
Oldest motorsport event in the world. It's been for over 100 years they've been doing it.
And the thing is, it must have been, I don't know what it was, interesting to hear kind of what it was like for you, but I imagine, probably got such kind of a hardcore, fan base, this event, lots of really hardcore bikers. And then, of course, you've done motorcycling in yourself in the past, of course, so freewheeling, people might have seen that already. But, what was it like kind of going into that area? Because, I mean, this is deliberately kind of, the most hardcore motorcycling event you can do, right? So I imagine it was quite strange entering that kind of sphere, if you like. Yeah,
there was a lot of people sort of... when I got up there was a lot of people that were just basically... and we show it in the show. We don't gloss over this. Basically, the first episode is people basically saying to my face and to the camera, he won't do this. This is basically he won't make the first day, So we had we had a lot of negativity. There's just sort of a hardcore of kind of a lot of the top guys were like really encouraging, just basically saying just go for it and stuff. But the thing about this event is it's so hard that there was kind of there was a lot of people. It would be like if I don't know. I'm trying to think of the nearest equivalent. If it was like if there was like a boxing match, I don't know. Yeah, it would be like it'd be like Jack D turning up to like a boxing match, something like that.
Yeah, no. Well, it must have been quite almost quite a shock for some people. Seeing yourself known as a comedian, primarily, of course, and seeing you arrive. But you went for it. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. But it's all sort of slowly over the course of the event, people start to come round and go, "Oh no, actually, he's putting the effort in."
So, he's actually doing this.
Yeah.
Did you get anyone asking for kind of one-liners from you as you're going around the tracks or anything like that? Or was everyone just too focused on surviving?
Funnily enough, yes, that is actually that does happen at quite a pivotal point in the show, just when I'm at my absolute lowest. Yeah. And a little kid who's watching goes, "Tell us a joke."
I knew it. It must have been quite tough at the time, but I was secretly really hoping that happened to you. It
happens, and we show it in the show. Yeah,
fantastic. It's 3 episodes, right? It runs for 3 episodes.
Yeah, 3 1 hours. Yeah,
fantastic. 8 on Dave.
Yeah,
wicked. Yeah, and one thing I was thinking, Ross, was I think you might have just missed one trick. I don't know. Maybe it does come in, but I think. Because I'm going to have to admit to you straight off that my all-time favourite horror comedy is Stitches.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. Great. Thanks.
But why didn't you? Should have used the tricycle from Stitches as the evil clown, or just on one part of it. Once you've already done it, you proved all the haters wrong. Like I've done it. I'm here. I've done it. Now here's what you kind of imagine that I would do. Here's the kind of comedian's take on it.
The tricycle in that film, like for those. Because I know it's hard to believe, but there might be people who haven't seen Stitches.
No.
It's not for me to say that it's the Citizen Kane of the slasher clown genre. But it basically, in that film, there's a chase that takes place on push bikes, and Stitches the clown is on a tiny tricycle. And there's a bit in it, the bit where I sort of like go up the hill and then the wheels spin. I pick up the tricycle and run after them. That was the first take we did, and the reason that happened was because I got up there and the tricycle just wouldn't. The hill was too steep, and it did just start slipping.
Oh, so you were actually supposed to try and make it up.
So yeah, I was supposed to ride into the shot and then ride out the other side of the shot, and it didn't happen. So as the wheel started spinning, so I just thought, well, I can't just stop. So I stood up, picked up the tricycle, and then ran after them just as a joke.
Oh, it's just one of the best moments as well.
And the director goes, "Cut!" And I went, "I don't know what to do there." And he went, "No, it's brilliant." And then I ended up in the final. So that was actually me. That was never intended. That wasn't in the script. In fact, there was supposed to be that chase was supposed to be a lot longer, and we filmed a load of stuff with jumping like.
Yeah, a couple of scares in there.
We did like a whole day's filming on a trailer. It's a bit like, in Indiana Jones, where they were supposed to do this big rooftop chase.
Yes.
And then they ran out of time, and so we just pulled out the gun and shot the guy.
Yeah, classic moment.
It's kind of the same thing, We were supposed to be this big chase sequence, and because I picked the bike up and just ran after
yes,
them,
that's
they
it.
went, right, that'll do. So, behind the scenes of the movie.
Shame you couldn't have just done this for this, isn't it? Really, just like, oh yeah, here we are.
But funny enough, I was talking to the producer of Stitch the other day, and I was sort of saying, I think if we do a sequel, then we might put some trial bike stuff in, because because we save money on a stuntman if I do it myself.
Well, that's it. Yeah, now you can do your own stunts on the bike. That'd be great. Stitches gets an upgrade.
Yeah, I think it could happen.
Well, I for one am very much looking forward to seeing how you cope with this. Have you got any tough moments which you're allowed to share? I don't want you to give away too much, of course.
In episode 2, myself and my mate that I'm doing it with, we have a massive falling out. There's a big argument, and that also coincides with me going over the handlebars about 10 times and landing in a heap. So yeah, there's plenty of moments in the show.
Excellent. Well, I think one last question for you, actually, Ross, and actually one of my favourite questions, actually, I think, is, would you have a song choice that you'd like to kind of accompany here? You kind of got in your head, like your own little theme tune, especially if you had any kind of ongoing songs that you were liking, around the time of the event, even, or if not, just any song that you like. I want to get a song for you.
Well, there is, in the show, our support crew, Dave and Sean, start having a conversation about Phil Collins and whether
Excellent.
the song's called Against the Odds or Against All Odds. And then they go backwards and forwards, arguing about what the name of the song is.
Which one is it? This is a question which always comes up, I think.
There's a film called Against All Odds, and the song's called Against the Odds, or vice versa. I'm not really sure. But then that's basically what... So they're in this van, so while we're having this big argument and then riding across the...
It's an important debate, though.
Yeah, because what happens in the show is basically there's all this like extreme sports stuff, and then it cuts back to Sean and Dave in the van, who are basically just eating magnums and pork pies, and...
debating Phil Collins
stuff. So and then there is a bit of a Phil Collins montage at one point in the show, because the thing about the show is that like it's a real sports documentary, but it's a Mickey take of sports documentaries at the same time,
Fantastic.
So it's got a bit of an 80s vibe to it.
Thanks very much anyway for your time, Ross. We'll get some Phil Collins on the show for you now, but thanks very much for your time, and I'll let you go. Thank you.
All right, cheers, Ed.
Thank you very much, Ross, for joining us on the show. Now, just for the record, it is indeed against all odds, in case you were wondering, by the way. Yes, so hopefully you caught that interview earlier on in the week on Source FM. If you did not, however, so it is episode 2 tonight at 8. If you didn't catch it, don't worry, you can still catch that episode 1 again. So if you've missed episode 1, don't worry, check the Dave site. You can see when you can catch that on repeats or on demand. Right, okay then, let's move on with the show. Next up, I'm going to have to introduce the fantastic, the marvellous...
Rochelle Humes.
Yes. Welcome to the show, Rochelle. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Hope you enjoy this, guys.
Hi, it's Rochelle Humes.
Hi, and it's Alison Sager, and I run the consumer team at PayPal.
Fantastic. Very warm welcome to you both. Thank you for joining me this morning. Now, I must say this is actually quite hilarious, isn't it? This survey that you've just been running over at PayPal, finding out where. And you're going to have to. I'm afraid I'm going to. You know what I'm going to ask you? I'm going to have to ask you both to own up to the most silly places that you've been online shopping. But looking at people's last minute kind of shopping habits, and they're hilarious.
I mean, yes, and we're there. The research that we found shows that last minute shopping, a lot of people are doing their online shop whilst being on the loo. Which is mental, actually. They're obviously sitting on the loo for quite some time and just enjoying it there.
And the worst part is...
like an armchair.
Yeah, the worst part is, sorry to interrupt, but the wording actually in this little release I've got in front of me, the wording's awful because it says, worst places that we're squeezing in gift shopping. I just thank the Lord that I didn't say squeezing it out. That would have been terrible.
Oh my gosh, don't. There you go. I said that as multitasking at its best, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's impressive, to be fair. I mean, as well, I think the related thing, right, is it looks like you're finding as well that people actually are openly admitting to the fact that they're just getting rubbish presents last minute, basically, and this panic buying.
But and also when you do panic buy, we were saying earlier, weren't we, Alison, that you end up spending more money because obviously it's like, okay, but I need to get this, and you just sort of think, oh, whatever, I'll just have to get it because I haven't got them a present. Yeah. You end up actually spending more money than if you'd sort of like left a little bit more time.
Exactly, it's preposterous. I was actually trying to think of whether you'd care to join me in a competition. I'm going to, I'm up against you now as to the most ridiculous presents you've ever bought someone. So, should we take it in turns to think about what the most ridiculous present ever is? Or is this too harsh? Is this too harsh?
I mean, what has been bought for me or that I've bought?
Doesn't matter. Either way is good.
Yeah, I know what the worst one is that I've probably been bought. My Saturday's bandmate Molly, we did Secret Santa once, so she didn't know that I'd find out that it was from her. And she obviously forgot because we've been really busy, and she took an egg cup from her mum's cupboard and wrapped it up and gave it to me.
What a marvellous gift!
The worst. I know.
Is it on the mantelpiece?
Yeah, it's not. I don't really know where it is anymore.
Oh no! What about you, Alison? Have you thinking? Or?
Oh, I mean, I do try really, really hard to get my shopping done early. And again, as a mobile shopper myself, I have, I do find that I try to get it done, and you can manage to squeeze in, excuse the pun.
No, it's quite all right.
Squeeze in a quick gift when you've got a moment, whether you're sort of in a meeting at work or I do quite a lot of mine on the sofa or in bed as well. So I do try really, really hard not to buy bad gifts. I have been known actually to, if it's absolutely out of desperation, run out to the shops and buy chocolate for people, which I don't think is particularly
selection box.
Yeah, classic.
I won't lie, which is why I do try to do all my shopping online.
Well, you know what I think PayPal should do actually, just to punish these bad shoppers. You know what they should do? They should add a little tag to anyone's present, right? That just says where it was purchased, like where they were when they ordered it. That would be great, wouldn't it? That would stop it. That would nip it in the bud, wouldn't it?
Where were you? What time? Was it 5 minutes ago?
Exactly. And I think the main reason, though, that's come out of the research about why people do buy bad gifts is that they're in such a rush. And I think many people are so short of time these days that, and that's the beauty of mobile shopping, right, is that even if you've just got a minute, hopefully a minute more than 5 minutes before you're giving the gift. Yeah. But if you've just got a minute and you're inspired at that moment, whether you're on the sofa or in bed, you're sort of on your commute to work, once you've got that inspiration, then, online shopping on your mobile allows you to just check out super quickly, particularly if you're paying with PayPal, where you don't even need to rumble around your handbag for your cards, or
that's it.
You're doing something else and you've only got one hand. So I think that's the beauty of technology.
Yeah, it's a lot easier, and actually I must own up, I do a lot of online shopping myself, and I think as well it kind of helps you, because I think some people who suddenly, as you're saying, like suddenly have an idea like, oh wait, that would be a good present. You can just whip out your mobile, done, sorted, no worries. No having to pop the loo or anything like that. You just sort it. Well, okay. Well, that's fair enough. They won't. they weren't too bad. I mean, the chocolates was okay. I think that's all right. I think you'll get away with that.
Yeah, I think so. Everyone always wants chocolate,
It's probably better than an egg cup.
Yeah,
you are right.
Better than an egg cup.
Yeah,
sure.
You might have to give money a hard time.
I don't even really eat eggs. Unless they're chocolate eggs.
Yeah, well, could have been worse, I suppose. Now, one question actually before we go any further. Now, this could be a hard question. I don't know, but right. And for you, Rochelle, this is going to be an obvious answer, right? But what I like to do is give my guests a song choice for the show. All right. But Rochelle, here's the thing. I was thinking, right? Well, obviously it's going to have to be the Saturdays, obviously. But I was just wondering, like, what your personal favourite for today would be of your own music.
Oh, of my own? Oh,
yeah,
my
of your own. Yeah.
I would probably say we love What About Us, because that was our first number one. So
Excellent.
that would always be a special song.
Lovely. Well, you know what? I'm going to get that on the show straight away.
Ah,
Sounds
thank
good.
you very much.
Alison, what about yourself? Have you got any particular songs that you would like me to give a little spin, as they say?
Not off the Saturday.
Oh, I was going to say.
Oh dear.
Generally.
Trouble in the studio
I'm like,
now.
yes, Alison, what's your favourite song?
Exactly. Oh, I do love a bit of Christmas music. I have to admit. I do.
What's your favourite?
I do like. Do they know it's Christmas? I just
Oh yeah.
I know it's crazy, but I love it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. To be honest, it is. People
I
feeling
love a bit
festive.
of Christmas music.
Yeah, excellent. I was trying to convince my mate earlier, right, that the greatest Christmas cover of all time is by Rod Stewart, The Sultry Tones of Rod. What do you think?
Yeah, but do you know, I bought. Remember he released the Christmas album, didn't he, a couple of years ago? It was so good.
Exactly.
I really liked that. I actually really liked that.
Thank you. Yeah. See, now I can. No one can disagree with you now.
I'm with you there.
Sweet. Right. Well, there we go. No one can actually deny that now. I've got you agreeing, so that's
not really that I have much sway, but I'm agreeing with you there.
No, that's it. It's debate over. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for coming on the show today. Thanks for chatting about this. And I just think the message to get out there to people is, what are you doing? You don't need to order on the loo. Just pop on your mobile, nice and easy, nice and straightforward. Pay with PayPal. Simple.
Fantastic.
That's it.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Thanks very much. Merry Christmas.
So much.
Well, no, you to you as well. Yeah, have a smashing Christmas. And yeah, thank you for coming on the show again. Have a fantastic rest of the day as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Absolute banger of a tune. Classic. Thank you very much indeed, Rochelle, for coming on the show. Thanks, Alison, as well. That was great. Now, okay, moving on. What do we got up for you next? Well, let's hear from Honey Lancaster-James. So I told you earlier that I'm very pleased to be joined again by Honey. Now, she's been on a previous show. Actually, if you want to hear what she was talking to us about before, pop yourself onto the catch-up on the Source FM website, and you will find her there. But today she's actually talking to me, and she's actually reacting to some market research actually from Purina. And here was the idea basically that we're kind of going with was this idea of this rise in kind of AI emulation of pets, and we're kind of imagining what this could mean for the future. If we took this and kind of look towards the future and we think about this. If this were to increase in the future, then perhaps it might be a bit worrying if you think about, replacing things like bonds with, indeed other people, but bonds with pets and things, and we spend so much time on technology, and kind of one of these ideas, I suppose, is that if we take that to the extreme and look toward the future, what if we started replacing things like pets, things like friends, and things like this with AI emulations of those things, and we kind of got talking about this. So this is Honey going to give her kind of view on this and how to you can see very clearly she's a very skilled life coach here. She's going to give some advice and things, and kind of imagine this scenario and how we can kind of stay grounded, if you like. Also, I'm very pleased to say as well, we've got Dr. Alex Massoudi on the show later to talk about his science. So from this section, if you kind of find this interesting, these kind of ideas that we'll be chatting about a little bit, we're actually going to turn to the kind of science side of things and chat to Alex Massoudi. And one of the things that we'll be chatting to Alex about is indeed technology. Right, here is Honey Lancaster-James, people. Hope you enjoy. I just ask you if you could first kind of just give a very rough outline to this research from Purina about this quite worrying finding actually that the pets are kind of on a decrease, whereas obviously our use with technology and particularly technology that emulates human interaction, that's rising, and it's perhaps quite worrying to some people.
I think it can be worrying, because any kind of change can be worrying to people. But I don't think we need to be worried unnecessarily, because there are things that we can do to balance, the growth of technology in our lives. Certainly, Purina Pet Care worked on a big piece of research. They also worked with the futurologist Gerd Leonard, who is a real expert in that area, and he was the one that said, that humanity is going to change more in the next 20 years than in the previous 300, which, when you think about it, you think about how different life is now from 300 years ago. Yes. That is really a huge leap into the future. So I think that can be scary. But interestingly, one of the things that the research also found is that when you're actually talking about pets, they have that ability to keep us emotionally grounded in an increasingly sort of technological age. Yes. Technology is not a bad thing. In fact, we were just chatting earlier. I'm a huge, geek when it comes to technology. I love having a smart home. I'm glued to my smartphone and my tablet and all of that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I think what is important, though, is to just make sure that it doesn't take over to your life to the exclusion of all else. Yes. And making it so that you're never interacting with your friends and family in real life, because you're always on social media, or you're always, interacting with your gadgets. And of course, when it comes down to your pets, there is this kind of pull towards the artificial intelligence version of pets, or virtual reality pets, yes, which again can be great toys, great to play with, but they're not real, and they're never going to replace that bond that we have with a real animal. And they're not going to foster the social and emotional development that we know, for example, children who grow up around pets in the home get from that. So, the development of empathy, the development of caring for another, that all comes from those early interactions with an animal that, really, if you don't feed them or you don't walk them or whatever it is you need to do, they're going to suffer. Whereas a technological device isn't. It's not going to die if you don't feed it. Yes, yes. And those are really valuable sort of life lessons that children learn, but also in adults' lives as well. We know, for example, that when we're under stress, stroking an animal really has stress-relieving benefits and properties. And for the elderly in particular, their companions, their animal companions, are so vital. We know we live in an age now where older people are suffering from loneliness and isolation, and so in those kind of circumstances, a real living, breathing pet, can't be replaced by an electronic gadget or a machine. Yes. So I think the real overall message is, it's fine, that we have technology in our lives, and let's embrace it. We're not going to be able to stop it. It's coming. We live in it. It's already here, really, but it's going to grow and grow and grow. But let's moderate that and balance that by maintaining our relationships with pets. And certainly the Purina Pet Care research shows that, sadly, pet ownership at the moment is falling among families in the UK. It's fallen by about 36,000 in the last year, while the tech industry in the UK grew by 22%. So it's about being aware that if we're not careful, we can get so involved in the technological age that we stop investing in real relationships with friends, family and pets, who many of us do see as an extended member of our families. And I think it's right to do that.
Yeah, that's a lot of fantastic points there. But yeah, that overall message is brilliant, because essentially I think as well, it's kind of the idea behind, or the main message of Gerd's work as well in this area, isn't it? Essentially, looking to the future, thinking about this, possibly scary to some people, but as you're saying, it doesn't really sound like there needs to be. But perhaps what there needs to be is just a moderation of that use, and you're saying, don't allow that to replace, things like pets, and the bonds that you have with a pet. So that's an interesting message, actually, isn't it? So with eyes to the future, yes, of course there will, there may well be this, vast increase in technology. But we're saying here that we basically just ground that with what we have in front of us, and pets and things.
That's right. I mean, certainly the research from Purina found that we're now spending, on average, 11 hours and 51 minutes a day on technology. When you think about that, that's a really significant portion of your life spent interacting with tech. And, whilst it's very useful, it does an awful lot for us. We know there are benefits to people, for example, connecting with others through the internet, through social media and things like that, particular interest groups and people getting online support and all sorts of things that can be great benefits. But we also need to moderate that and make sure we don't lose touch with reality.
Yes.
And one of the ways we can ground ourselves emotionally is by making sure that we're still interacting with real, warm, living, breathing animals and other beings with blood running through their veins. I think that's what we're saying. We can't replace that. And I don't think we ever will, really. I don't think we ever will. I think anybody out there, who has a dog or a cat or any other, animal, particularly one you can cuddle, maybe not a goldfish, but, anything like that, I think that if you come home from work after a really stressful day, yes, you can interact with your various gadgets, and I do, I have all the smart home gadgets and speak to them and get them to turn the lights on and play music and all of that. But there is no substitute to your dog or your cat, coming up to you and giving you a cuddle or whatever, sitting on your knee and snuggling down, to watch TV with that, with your beloved pet next to you or on your lap. There is just nothing that, can replace that bond. I think that's important for us to remember that. And I also think it's important to, for families to be aware that for children growing up in a household particularly with a dog, there have been a lot of studies that have shown great benefits there for children, even in terms of their performance at school being better, in terms of, their sort of ability to not be as lonely or cope with stress at school, particularly children who are maybe facing bullying. They can be a huge solace. In my own case, in our family, I've got 2 grown-up kids now, but my daughter, when she was little, when she was 3, she had an unfortunate episode with a neighbour's dog where she was bitten. She went to throw the dog while he was eating, and it was a small bite, but it was still very upsetting for her, and it led to the development of a bit of a phobia around dogs that became a real problem by the time she was 11. And what we did about it was we got our own family dog, a very small dog, a chihuahua, very small dog. And that was how we helped her, because she formed a bond with our dog. She began to understand the way Lulu, our chihuahua, worked and what she liked and didn't like. And that was how she began to see them as, not all dogs are scary. Not all dogs are going to, react like that. And it changed her life, because it was getting to a point where, she couldn't go out even to walk to school. She was scared in case someone had a dog off lead or whatever. And that, in that kind of way, they can be so therapeutic. I'm particularly, a dog lover, but cats as well, have those kind of benefits. And I really welcome as well the move that we're seeing, particularly in America at the moment, but I think it is coming here, towards therapeutic dogs, where people who suffer with depression or anxiety can have a companion, a furry companion, in the same way maybe that a dog might be used to help somebody who has a visibility impairment, for example.
Yes.
And we're seeing some great results there. So there really is nothing that can replace a beloved animal. And I think, anyone out there who's got a pet and loves them dearly will know what I'm talking about. And I think it is one of those things that perhaps you don't know until you've experienced it.
No, they definitely bring a lot of love. I was just visiting my parents' house this weekend, just gone, and we've got the family dog. He's a border collie called Sparky. He's absolutely insane, but he's great. You can't replace him. No way.
No, exactly.
And exciting news as well. Since I last had you on the show, actually, I've got great development. Actually, I now have a pet lizard called Zeus.
A pet lizard?
Yeah, how cool is that?
Fantastic. Do you bring him into the studio? Because you could close the doors and he could just run around the walls.
Exactly, he's the mascot. Yeah,
brilliant. The studio lizard. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there's no replacing him either. So I'm
I
totally
don't know whether
agreeing.
does he give nice warm cuddles on a winter's evening though.
Well,
maybe not as much as our dog.
No, not really. His heat lamp is quite nice. You can just get that one instead, maybe.
I can just imagine you curling up under the heat lamp with the lizard.
Yeah, it's ideal. It's just what you've always wanted, really. Just
Exactly, yeah. So you know what's going to be on everybody's Santa list this year.
Exactly.
Dear Santa, bring me a lizard.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put apologies for any parents out there now.
Yeah,
Away.
exactly. They're going to be hating you right now. I didn't recommend a lizard.
Yeah, that is on the record. You're not.
Not that
you're
I have
endorsing.
anything against them.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, honey. Really appreciate that.
Pleasure as always.
Just one last. Oh no, sorry. Two last questions. Number one, I'd just like to quickly remind listeners where they can go to check this out for themselves. This research. They can head to the Purina website, can't they?
Yes, absolutely. So just go to purina.co.uk. You can find a link there to their research and to their Better with Pets research and report, where you'll get loads of really good information there from a lot of other researchers as well who've been looking at the massive impact that pets have in our lives.
Fantastic. And here is probably the most important question of all, the very final question, and that is, would you like me to get a song on the show for you? You've got a song choice.
Oh, wow.
I know it's tough, it's just being sprung on you, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah, you sprung it on me. Gosh, okay. Well,
don't be shy, it can be anything. It can be anything.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, you've really put me on the spot now. Because of the theme, I was thinking something like Puppy Love or something. I don't know, something a bit really sort of cheesy but topical.
That sounds good to me. That sounds like the perfect choice. Excellent. And you may or may not admit that is your favourite song, but I'll leave that to the listeners to ponder. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, honey. I'll let you go.
All right.
Thanks for chatting to me. Cocktail tasting coming up with M&S towards the end of the show, so do stay on for that if you're in the mood to start getting well and truly, properly, 100% festive. Then that's what you can do. You can, help you out with that section there. Good time now as well. I thought I was going to get away with this actually, but I have just got a text through from Steph. Stephanie's Christmas countdown. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to escape from this today. 10 days, 15 hours to go, people. Oh, it's very, 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 very close indeed. So, just pop out and get your presents if you haven't yet, or as perhaps actually you could just rob an egg cup from your parents' house or something. As well, Rochelle was telling us a little bit about that. She's got experience with that kind of thing, so maybe you could ask Rochelle about it if you wanted to know a bit more. Right, okay. So next up, great pleasure to introduce Dr. Alex Massoudi. So, if you enjoyed that section with Henry Lancaster-James and kind of imagining this scenario where the rising kind of AI, begins to emulate pets and things in the future, there's the kind of advancement of technology, and there are lots of these kind of futurists out there. You can read about their kind of views and the kind of their views on really the advancement of technology. And I thought, well, let's get one of our kind of experts from the campus to think a little bit, scientifically about this. And so if you're interested in thinking about this, then let's turn to the kind of science side of things now. So Alex Massoudi is an absolutely fantastic researcher here on the Cornwall campus, University of Exeter, and he's actually been telling us all about his work, telling us a little bit about the technology side of his work as well. But and there is really no other place that you can hear scientific explanation of memes. And as it turns out, actually, memes are actually came about actually from a very famous scientist. But I won't explain it all now. I'll let Alex come in and explain that now. So Alex, very warm welcome to the show to you. Thank you very much indeed for chatting to us today. One final point as well is, as you're about to find out, Alex has a cracking taste in music as well. So, no worries there either. So fantastic. Welcome, Alex. Hope you enjoy this, guys. Stay tuned.
My name's Alex Massoudi. I'm Associate Professor here on the University of Exeter's Cornwall campus, and I study human cultural evolution, so viewing cultural change as an evolutionary process and trying to use the kind of concepts and tools that biologists use to study changes in species and changes in biological organisms, applying those kind of tools and concepts to try and understand human cultural change, whether it's changes in technology or religion or languages. So the broad field is about trying to understand cultural change as an evolutionary Darwinian process. So my original training, I guess, was in psychology, experimental psychology. So my specific research uses lab experiments, getting participants into the lab or going out to test them in the real world, and trying to uncover how people learn from each other. So the fundamental of evolution is inheritance, really. So when we're thinking about genetic or biological evolution, it's all about genetic inheritance and things being passed from one generation to another, and then selection acting on that inherited variation. So when we're thinking about cultural evolution, it's really important to think about how cultural ideas, beliefs, technologies, artifacts, how they're passed from person to person, which you can see as a kind of inheritance, not genetically, but socially. So copying each other through imitation or spoken or written language, so how information flows from person to person. So in the lab, I get people to design artifacts, make them play computer games or play little games where they make hand axes or arrowheads or artifacts that archaeologists are often interested in. And then we're interested in how they make those and who they choose to copy from, potentially. So we're interested in, do people copy other people's artifacts? Do they use their own trial and error? If they copy others, who do they copy? Do they copy the most successful person in the experiment or micro-society? Do they kind of conform to the most common designs in the group? And how do these sort of learning biases, learning decisions, how do they translate up into broad-scale change? So I work with archaeologists and try and explain their broad actual changes in artifacts over thousands of years, trying to use experiments to almost go back in time, and experiments are like a time machine, so you're going back and trying to simulate the kind of learning dynamics, learning decisions that people in the past were using, which we can only now see in terms of the broad historical change.
That's fascinating. I think at its core it's a really, really fascinating area. And you were saying about these changes that you're actually trying to see kind of borne out in the kind of physical archaeological finds almost. So I remember you had some visitors recently, and I was talking to them about the kind of things that they were interested in. I remember just being at first you're quite surprised to see that actually one of the focus of this particular projects that they were involved with was that almost like the artwork on a sarcophagus, and I think that's incredible that actually. I just don't think people would consider that, or think of that immediately when we think of this kind of overarching term, biosciences. I think that's why it's so cool, just that you're looking at things like this. And also, I think as well with the information transfer that we're kind of thinking about here, I think wasn't it Dawkins who coined the term meme in the first place to kind of essentially jab at kind of putting across some terminology for that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, probably many of your listeners may have read The Selfish Gene, which is hugely influential in biology and made Dawkins his name, and that was all about viewing genetic evolution in abstract terms, in terms of replicators and inheritance. And in the final chapter of The Selfish Gene, he said, well, actually, this theory of evolution, it's not restricted to genetic change. You can actually apply it to the kind of cultural traits that I was talking about just then, so artifacts and words and religious beliefs and ideas, and you can see these as evolving entities over time because they vary, they're inherited through social learning from generation to generation and within generations, and there's often some kind of selection or sorting process. So some ideas are more catchy than others, some songs are more reproducible than others, yes. Some artifacts are more effective than others, so there's going to be some kind of selective processes going on to the random and non-random processes going on to sort the cultural variation. So yeah, viewing it in those abstract terms, you can see culture very much as an evolutionary process. And it's kind of unfortunate that modern universities have these disciplinary silos, so archaeology is here and history is here and biology is here. They're often in different buildings and hardly ever talk to each other, but I guess what we're trying to do is try and come up with an overarching framework to link, like I said, psychology and archaeology all within a big evolutionary evolutionary framework. So another big biologist, E.O. Wilson, who's written a lot about conservation, he also wrote about consilience, the idea that we should see consilience of knowledge across different fields and across different traditional academic disciplines. I think evolutionary theory is really good at doing that because it's an overarching theory, not just for biology, biological change, but also for cultural change.
And I think as well, even the fact that, as a quite a silly example, but even the fact that we call things, that kind of go viral on the internet, I think even that just shows that, there clearly is, even in that term, there's some biological way of thinking there about that transfer of information, whatever it is. I mean, obviously that's a silly example, some random picture or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, kind of memes have taken on a life of their own, I guess. Now
exactly.
a meme is a catchy cat photo or cat video on the internet that spreads, and sometimes I tell my students that Richard Dawkins coined the word meme, and they're quite shocked because it's this old fusty Oxford professor who wrote a book in the 70s.
What does he know about memes?
Their idea of meme is a cat video on the internet, but making those connections is kind of interesting, and you can see those. That's kind of a trivial example, but also illustrates the point that these are shared by people, spread on the internet, these kind of things. There are reasons for why they're catchy. You might think they're trivial, but actually it's kind of interest to advertisers and people coming up with health campaigns who want to spread maybe more relevant, useful information than cat videos. And so it's all about figuring out the psychological biases that make some things more catchy than others, but also the social factors as well. So how people are structured in groups, what are the kind of social networks that people are within, and how does information flow through those networks well, if it's a message we want to encourage, or how do we maybe stop harmful messages from spreading, maybe using by manipulating social networks perhaps.
I'd never made that connection actually before between kind of that kind of thing and advertising, because of course that makes perfect sense. I guess in a very silly way. I don't know if you let this fly, but it kind of sounds to me as if, like, imagine as an advertiser you're essentially trying to design a virus that is going to spread very well, utilising whatever it is that allows it to transfer to the next person to get as much of that information transfer as possible. Quite a funny way of thinking about it, I suppose. But I think it just goes to show that there's so much knowledge like this that has to go on behind the scenes in every day.
I guess companies are kind of proprietary about their data, so it's often hard to figure out what they're doing behind the scenes, and we're never quite sure exactly how effective they are. But certainly things like public health campaigns, there's work in cultural evolution on things like emotion. So if you make messages emotionally salient, so if you elicit disgust, for example, is quite a good way of making something catchy and making it spread. So you might remember, I think it was the NHS maybe, you had a campaign about smoking where they had pus coming out from the cigarette. So that was sort of designed to elicit emotional reactions of disgust, which stops you smoking more effectively than if you say that X% of the population catches lung cancer from smoking. So more dry statistics tend not to work so well. So I've done some experiments on sort of social information. So I run in the past I've run Chinese whispers style or broken telephone style experiments where you pass messages along chains of people and look to see what gets transmitted best, what gets remembered best. So one of the earliest studies I did was comparing social information, so information about people interacting or having affairs with each other. So it can be kind of juicy gossip, or can just be people talking to each other, versus equivalent non-social information. And actually in those original studies, one of the non-social stories that we passed was global warming, which was a kind of non-social thing about carbon being released into the atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. And the gossipy stories about people that I made up, all fictional, transmitted really, really well, and the non-social stuff about global warming hardly got transmitted at all.
So it's kind of like, did you hear about what happened with Joe and Sue sort of thing, and that would be...
Which is unfortunate because global warming kind of information and messages are the kind of things that we want to pass through society and get people engaged with that and come up with solutions to it, but we're competing against, I don't know, Heat or Big Brother or whatever, which is eliciting maybe, again, our evolved psychology to be, we're a social species, we're fundamentally engaged with other people rather than statistics, and so it's another one of those biases that we can think about. How do we frame something like global warming in a social context and get people to think about it in more concrete, meaningful ways, and so solutions to those problems can maybe be as effective, or information about that can be spread as effectively maybe as who's just been voted out of Celebrity Big Brother. Yeah,
that's actually a really fascinating point. So I bet, as thinking about it yourself, I'm sure you probably weren't particularly surprised by that finding, of how effectively the kind of global warming versus the gossip, if you like, was passed on. And I suppose it probably shocks a lot of people, but I just think a lot of people need to remember, of course, that as you're saying here, like that the brain, it depends what the brain has evolved to do, doesn't it? It depends what kind of, if for example we're not particularly rational, like it doesn't. If I were to tell you the dimensions of this recorder here, it's kind of meaningless. Whereas if I was to tell you like what I did with it or something, and it was a funny story, then you'd probably remember more about it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so lots of public policy has been based on, I guess, neoclassical economics, which has this idea of Homo economicus, and that we're super rational, and behavioural economics, that Richard Thaler, who just won the Nobel Prize in economics, was responsible for starting. Kind of linked to cultural evolution, is starting to argue people are not rational, people are often irrational, but they're also not random, so they're irrational, if you want to use that word, in specific ways, and often understanding how the brain evolved and the evolutionary context within which human societies function can give us clues as to the way in which human psychology is irrational, and give us insights into how information spreads, and again the social networks within which information spreads.
You said at the beginning, when I first started chatting to you about the kind of thing that you're interested in, and you were saying the end goal, I suppose, is looking, or at least one part of your work is looking at what it results in. So what gets born out of all of this. So you've got these changes, and you were saying about archaeological finds and things. And one of the the traits, of course, which you can look at is technology.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to kind of move into that and talk a little bit about that, and perhaps because I'm sure you've come across the many kind of popular views of this. For instance, these ideas about this, the technology being in a kind of almost can be treated as like this separate entity, which is just so rapidly evolving, so fast evolving, that maybe there will become a time when it just runs away exponentially and it kind of leaves us behind, sort of thing. Some of these funny ideas. I was wondering if you had any kind of immediate thoughts on that.
Yes, I mean, we're interested in technology because it's kind of a prime example of cultural evolution, and in particular it's a good example of what we call cumulative cultural evolutions. This is the idea that, literally, people don't reinvent the wheel every generation. So every generation, inventors or scientists take what previous generations have invented or discovered, build on it, and then pass it on to the next generation. And that might sound kind of a simple, obvious thing, but actually it seems like humans are probably the only species on the planet to have that cumulative technological evolution. So many species have what we might call technology, so tool using, say chimpanzees will get rocks and use them as like hammers and anvils to open nuts and crack open the nuts and get, so you can see that as a kind of technology, but there's no sense in which that chimpanzee tool use or technology accumulates over successive chimpanzee generations. They're not getting more and more elaborate, they're not inventing sort of increasingly effective nut cracking technology in a way that obviously humans have been doing for thousands of years, and we've got iPhones and computers and cars and things that are the cumulative product of multiple generations of previous people. So I guess we're interested in, again, maybe going back to basics, understanding what other mechanisms or what things do you need or what things do humans have that allow our technology to be cumulative and no other species to have that cumulative technology. So we're interested in things like how information is passed with high fidelity from one generation to the next. So if you want to build on technology, you need to faithfully acquire it from the previous generations. So it's thinking about things like imitation or writing things down or language as means to more effectively preserve information over time. And that's actually going back to your comment about technology being a thing of itself. I guess we're also more interested in putting it in a social context, because lots of work shows historically that actually you need the right social conditions for technology to accumulate. You need large enough population sizes. You need interconnected networks of inventors. So there's the classic case study is Tasmania, which off the coast of Australia, about 10,000 years ago, was connected to Australia and had quite rich technology, accumulated technology, bone tools, fire, thick clothing. But then got cut off, sea levels rose, got cut off from the mainland of Australia and actually lost a lot of its technology, lost bone tools, lost fire, lost the clothing, and the sort of leading hypothesis is people didn't get less intelligent or anything like that, actually, because they were a smaller cut-off population from mainland Australia. When the expert bone tool maker died, then you've lost bone tool making. If you're on the mainland, you could just go to the next village and get bone tool knowledge, or replenish your bone tool knowledge. But if you're in a sort of isolated, cut-off island, then you've lost that forever until you've got more migrants coming in. So, and people have talked about the Industrial Revolution as being sort of stimulated by networks of scientists through the Royal Society, or patent systems, again, as a way of sharing knowledge. So, yeah, we shouldn't see technology as some sort of mimetic system evolving on its own. It's always embedded in social networks, and it's studying the populations of inventors and users that facilitate that change over time.
Information transfer now, for example, is just so effective. You know, I can go on the internet, I can see what they're doing anywhere in the world at any time. And I suppose what people might have taken from that is, if you've got that incredibly effective information transfer, whether that will, you know, somehow allow technology to then, you know, increase at a rate different to what it was before, and what that kind of means. But of course, that kind of process, I guess, probably would increase that rate. But I suppose you'd have to have that for many thousands of years or so.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So yeah, so those cases like Tasmania show that I think we're in a fortunate place in history at the moment. We're on the cusp of an exponential increase in technology within our own lifetimes. We've seen major changes in things like mobile, smartphones and other kinds of computing technology. But taking a long view, you have these cases like Tasmania where things get lost. You have long stasis, so Acheulean hand axes that were kind of the first really good item of technology that humans invented, were stable for 1 million years, and didn't change for 1 million years. But it is true that in, I guess, the last 100 years or so, there has been an exponential increase in scientific knowledge and technology. So you can measure that by counting the number of publications in scientific journals and counting the number of patents in the patent record. So there has been an exponential increase, probably due, as you say, to things like writing and high-fidelity transmission, and, well, similarly, there's lots more scientists, lots of companies pump money into research and development. But I guess the interesting thing is that very recently, last decade or so, there's been a slowdown in that exponential increase. So actually, we're seeing that companies are finding it harder and harder to make important innovations. So they're pumping more and more money into R&D, they're employing more and more research scientists, but actually the rate of increase is stable, which you would expect it to be increasing if you're putting more resources in. So I did a study a couple of years ago trying to maybe think about why that might stop, or why the exponential increase in technology and science might be slowing down. So my idea, actually partially supported, was that as you get more and more complex scientific knowledge or technological knowledge, it gets harder and harder to acquire that for each new generation. So if you imagine Isaac Newton back in whenever, 1700, he came along, what did he have to learn? He had to learn what the Greeks did, what Arab scholars did, what Hindu scholars did, everything before Newton. That's what he had to learn in order to make his contribution. But if you imagine a physics PhD student today, they have to learn everything that Newton learned, but also everything Newton discovered, everything that's happened since Newton, Einstein, Boltzmann, all the scientific discoveries, physics discoveries in the last few hundred years. So a student now literally has more to learn than a student 200-300 years ago. So as we accumulate more knowledge, it becomes harder and harder to acquire that. And you can show that training periods have increased over time. So one study found that you can calculate the age, mean age at which people made the discovery at which they won their Nobel Prize. And you find it in 1900 they were on average, I think, 32 years old when they made their Nobel Prize winning discovery.
Yes.
In the year 2000 they were 38. So over 100 years it's taken, increased by 6 years or so in terms of training. And so that was in the studies that we did analysing these kinds of data. We suggested that this might be a limiting factor. So if you're spending so much time learning what previous generations have done, you've got no time to innovate. And that's a kind of natural, causes a natural plateau for increasing technological evolution. I guess you might argue maybe once we have artificial intelligence, then we don't need to rely on humans acquiring previous generations' knowledge, but at the moment, I guess artificial intelligence making scientific discoveries is still the subject of science fiction. But who knows? People like Elon Musk and their ilk suggest that artificial intelligence is going to increasingly take over things like scientific and technological discovery. So if that's the case, we can break that limit of increasing training periods. But it is, it's instructive to think about how this exponential increase will continue in the future, and what kinds of things will prevent it.
That's a fascinating point, actually. I think myself as well, I hadn't considered that. Of course, there are very likely constraints to that, and that's exactly what you've been looking at. That's really, really fascinating. So if people are kind of thinking about that already, then a nice kind of gateway, I think, into thinking a little bit more about that. And be closer. Do you think that's? I don't know if this is a silly example, but do you think your kind of findings and work on these kind of constraints on the exponential increase of knowledge, takes longer to, it's more difficult, takes longer to pick up the knowledge at each generation? Because I guess one thing which is kind of immediately apparent in science is that if you look in the past, there are all these kind of heroic, almost legendary scientific figures who make these groundbreaking contributions. Mm-hmm. And I suppose one thing in science you might argue is that perhaps that's got less over time, perhaps because of this kind of constraint, because there simply is less to discover, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, in some domains, it's... there are fewer stars to discover, or fewer atomic elements to discover. So in some domains there is a kind of finite thing, but I guess that's been another big transition from single individuals making discoveries, like Einstein's or Newton would be the classic examples, and now most science is done in large teams, so scientific papers that get published often have 20, 30 authors, and multinational teams from multiple universities. So I guess that's, kind of division of labour might be playing a role there, and more distributed networks of knowledge rather than relying on a single individual. But like I said, there's still been this slowdown in knowledge. So even though there are larger teams, and this might be one solution to that, it still seems to be harder and harder per researcher or per pound that you put into research. It does seem to be harder and harder to make new discoveries.
Oh, first of all, thank you very much indeed, Alex, for chatting to us all about this today. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and things. Just one last question for you then. I'll leave it on air just so we've got evidence of it as well, so I can't be blamed for it. And that is, would you have a song choice off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head? Well, I'm trying to think of a song related to technology. I guess we've been discussing that. I think... So OK Computer, Radiohead is kind of suffused with technology all the way through it, and it came out when I was 17, so it was a formative influence for me. So maybe the first track on that, Airbag, might be
sounds good. Sounds choice. Perfect. Yeah, a very wise choice. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, now we're joined by a very, very special guest now, Emily Duncan, from our very own campus here at the University of Exeter here in Cornwall. Now, Emily, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. You okay?
I'm okay, thank you.
Excellent. Right. Well, I mean, microplastics and plastic pollution, right? They've been in the news again. I don't know if you caught the finale for the new series of Blue Planet, but of course, we're kind of all thinking about this again. Plastics pollution. I thought, well, ideal, because actually we've got some kind of research in this area going on at campus, haven't we? And you yourself, actually, you're involved in this kind of work, aren't you? So I wonder if you could just, give yourself a very quick introduction for our listeners, and maybe tell them a little bit about the stuff that you actually work on.
I'm a PhD researcher up at the University of Exeter, and all of my research is based on plastic pollution and its effect on marine turtles. they look at various different things. For example, why turtles might be eating plastic, but also microplastics as well, which are anything under 5 millimeters, but they can be sort of microscopic pieces of plastic.
Yeah, so because I think that's the thing. I think this is the definition of the microplastics, and so that is just based on size. Then, so if people come across that in different news articles or whatever, that's just talking about the size. Then, and that's it.
Yeah, so microplastic, yes, is anything under 5 millimeters, but most researchers are finding them sort of micrometers or nanometers long now. So they're really, really tiny pieces of plastic.
We'll just close up just by asking you, actually, and I think, a lot of people can already kind of imagine why it's a concern. But, why do you personally see this as a big concern? And I guess as well, linking in as well to, why we care so much in science about this issue, whether this be plastic, and kind of regardless of size, really, but plastic pollutions in general. Why are we so concerned?
Well, basically, it's entered into the marine environment since the 1950s, so it's a really recent source of pollution, and it just means that animals haven't evolved or haven't had time to evolve to cope with it at all. So that is why we're getting so many marine animals ingesting it and being entangled in it, because they haven't ever evolved a mechanism to cope with it, really.
Yes.
It's all happened too quickly, and also there's just so much of it, really.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, lots of problems you're highlighting there, and I think that thing about it being such a new thing is really concerning, isn't it? Because not only that as well, but I'm guessing this stuff, it's not just a transient thing, right? It's probably here to stay for a long time. I guess that's the problem with plastic; it's going to hang around a long time.
Yeah, it never fully degrades, so it will break down into smaller and smaller pieces. So even if we stop putting everything in the ocean right now, there's still going to be loads of plastic left there, just sort of breaking down into microplastics.
Yeah, it is worrying. Emily, is there anywhere people can go online, any kind of search terms that you'd recommend them to look at? Because, thinking about turtles, actually, that your own work, you can see some, horrendous pictures online, can't you, of turtles tangled up in things, and it really, really is sad to see. I was just wondering if you had anywhere listeners could have a look at, like wet lab websites, or even just Google search terms to have a think about this a bit more.
So we've just released a paper on marine turtle entanglement. So if you Google marine turtle entanglement and the University of Exeter, there's some images that are pretty shocking within our manuscript. And also the Olive Ridley project, based out in the Maldives, has some of the worst cases of this. So you could take a look at that as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for pointing them in that direction. Thank you, and congratulations on that paper. That's fantastic. And thank you, Emily. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, have a great day now. Bye. Okay, well, big thanks to Emily for coming on the show. Fantastic. Yeah, so I do urge you to go and have a look at the research that she's talking about there. You can see her paper, as she was saying. Lots of researchers on campus and involved with this. Do check out Emily's work. We've actually Emily has agreed, and this is fantastic, to do a kind of a sit-down interview at a later date. So after the Christmas holidays, you will hear from Emily alongside some other researchers in the area of plastics. Now, thinking along the plastics theme, also a few weeks ago now, I spoke to the chief exec of the Surfers Against Sewage charity, which is a charity entirely dedicated actually to assisting in the area. They're kind of at the front line against pollution, and in particular, they're one of their current focuses is plastic pollution, because as it's such a big issue. As Emily was explaining there, it's a very new issue, very worrying for an awful lot of people. Scientists, very concerned about it. So here is actually Hugo Tacom, as I said, the chief exec of the Surfers Against Sewage charity, talking to me a few weeks ago a little bit about this, about his work, also about how you can get involved. So if you wanted to, try and make a difference in this area, then he's telling you how you can get involved. Also, he's going to be talking a little bit about the Wasteland warship. Now, you might have come across this already in the news. If you haven't, this warship is actually, if you can Google it, actually, you can come across some nice images of it. I say nice, but actually, it's quite horrendous to think actually that this is basically what they did is took a tiny portion of the waste that they collected across beaches in the UK, and they built this warship out of it, out of this waste, and they actually had this on display for a while. You can see images of it. Anyway, that's enough from me for now. Thank you very much to Emily Duncan for coming on the show. Appreciate your time, Emily. Thank you. And now up next is Hugo Tagholm talking a little bit more about plastic pollution.
Surfers Against Sewage is a national marine conservation and campaigning charity that was born out of the sewage issue in the 1990s that was impacting particularly a small group of surfers in the southwest, people who were getting sick of getting sick when they went surfing, and so it was a very visceral and direct connection they had with wanting to tackle the problem. And that remains the case today. We have diversified. We're not just about surfers and we're not just about sewage these days, but we still have the same passion that drives us. And that comes from the direct visceral connection that I have, my team has, our regional reps and our volunteers have with the ocean. They have a sort of almost a daily connection with the ocean. They immerse in that environment, and that really drives the passion to protect it. It's often said that people protect what they love, and I think the charity very much embodies that. We walk over tide lines of trash, we see particularly plastic pollution, and it urges us to take action. So as opposed to maybe some other charities, we are at the very front line of what we see, and we like to put our experience into practice to try and fight for a cleaner coastal future.
Yes, absolutely. I think anyone in Cornwall as well, like we are, of course. It's got to be true for everybody, really. I mean, we all, in some way, I think, appreciate being near the marine environment, and as you say, actually experiencing what's currently happening to that, I think is a very sad thing to see, isn't it? And it really does, or should at least, call us to action. And I think what we were kind of maybe talking a bit about today, if that's okay with you, about this new study actually claiming that actually 25% of Brits actually wrongly think that all plastic is recyclable. And of course, what this means is that this major problem that you've alluded to here, this terrible plastic pollution issue, is saying some parts of beaches you have to wade through, and I guess as well tourists probably don't often see this because of course beaches get the really popular beaches, I guess, get cleaned regularly, so you probably don't, I guess, to actually see the extent of the damage, if you like. I guess you'd have to go somewhere which isn't receiving that treatment.
Absolutely. I mean, the council and private beach managers will clean beaches, effectively during the summertime. As you say, a lot of tourists may not see some of the sort of plastic carnage that we see on beaches, out of the season. Although, even in the season, there's many beaches that are still really badly affected, and we see a different accumulation of litter that often comes from people leaving more behind them, or just a general sort of overflowing of bins during the summertime. This is all really a symptom of a world that is addicted to plastic, and particularly to single-use plastics. We have evolved over the past few decades a huge amount of plastic packaging across a variety of products. Food, but not just food, our toiletries, household items, all sorts of things. And we just haven't evolved the systems to cope and contain that plastic in an effective way. I've recently compared the plastic pollution crisis in our oceans to climate change. The sad reality of plastic is there's no natural system that can process it effectively. It can't be used by nature as a substance for life. Even with climate change, we know that carbon dioxide can be assimilated by our trees and our plants. The same cannot be said for plastic. So it will persist in the environment for many hundreds of years. It accumulates in the world that we live in, and it's very important we start to look at strategies to design it out of the products we use, and in the meantime, do everything we can to minimize our own plastic footprint. And that can be as simple as refusing plastic bags at the checkout at the supermarket. It can be taking your own refillable water bottle. You can choose products with less plastic in them, or you can recycle much more effectively and make sure that you don't contaminate it with non-recyclables or inferior sort of quality plastics that may not end up in the recycling system. So we can all do something every day, and that's why we've launched the Wasteland campaign today. We're urging people to join us, join the resistance, and do their bit to tackle single-use plastics in particular.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a very very worthwhile goal, and I guess as well, it doesn't take much. It takes just a bit from everyone, I guess, to make these choices, as you say, as a consumer, to just be careful with exactly what plastic it is that you're getting. And really whether that plastic is necessary at the end of the day. I guess it all comes from, these small steps.
We can all make choices every day. Every little action can be a piece of resistance. So, you may not be able to completely eliminate it. There may be things that you still choose to consume, but we can all recycle better. We can all make more choices that lead to a world that has less plastic in it. We're encouraging people to sign up for their own individual action plans on this with our new website, plasticfree.org.uk. We've got a stunning film narrated by the Oscar-nominated actress Imelda Staunton, which depicts the North Pacific Gyre as a new emerging superpower that is threatening the world with plastic. And the response to that is one of community hope and unity, where we can get together to solve the crisis at a community level.
Fantastic. And you've also got, as you were saying about this current project that you've just launched, this 30-foot warship actually made up entirely of plastic waste, as a kind of a very stark reminder that this is what's actually. This is a tiny portion of the amount of material that's actually being thrown away into the ocean.
Yeah, the Wasteland bottle ship, I should call it, is actually made out of 50,000, or some of the 50,000 bottles that our beach clean volunteers collect or have collected at beaches UK-wide over the last few months alone. We mobilise about 25,000 volunteers every year who together contribute 10 million minutes of volunteering time to our coastline. And they're seeing this thing firsthand. So we wanted to demonstrate to the public the scale of the issue with an installation, and we feel that the warship does that very effectively. It's effectively attacking our coastlines, this plastic, and we need to pick it up, we need to recycle it, we need to stop it getting there in the first place. We can all do something, so we urge everyone to sign up to plasticfree.org.uk and be part of the movement. Whether you're inland or on the coastline, you can all do something about plastic pollution. The fallout from plastic will last for hundreds of years, and it's really important that we all recognise that with the single-use plastic items we're using, that straw that you might have in your drink at a bar or cafe will actually be in the environment for hundreds of years once you've used it for a few seconds. And when you compare those timescales, I think it should help spur you into action to trying to eliminate and minimise the amount of plastic you're using.
Well, Mr. Tacon, thank you very much indeed for all of your time today.
No problem at all. It's great to talk to you.
Well, thank you again to Hugo for joining us on the show. And now that interview is a few weeks old now, so unfortunately you won't be able to see the Wasteland warship on any time soon around you, but you can still see the pictures. So do Google it to see what we're talking about there, because I think it is quite shocking to see just how much waste can be collected remarkably quickly by volunteers just across UK beaches. And if you're interested, of course, he was saying that you can sign up plasticfree.org.uk. You can sign up there to hear a little bit more about how you can make a difference. And thank you again actually to Emily for coming on this show a second ago to also talk a little bit about plastic pollution and microplastics. Right, okay, coming up next then, yes, it is time. Now, I've been promising you that I'm going to do some cocktail tasting, some M&S cocktail tasting. So here it is, tasting actually alongside Maddie Lovett. She's the product developer, so she's the woman we can thank for these fantastic cocktails. And also Rebecca Seal, who's a food and drink writer and, of course, a cocktail expert. Right, let's get this section on for you now. And, I can't be blamed if you now are going to be left wanting cocktails, this early in the morning. Please, if I were you, I would refrain just for a few hours, just till later. When you get home from work, you crack the cocktails out, give it a try. Anyway, hope you enjoy this section. Let's feel festive, people.
Hi, I'm Maddie Lovett, and I'm the product developer drinks in Marks and Spencer's.
And I'm Rebecca Seal. I'm a food and drink writer and drinks expert.
Fantastic. Well, very warm welcome to you both, Rebecca and Maddie. Thank you for joining me. And, this is something which actually surprised me a little bit, but actually, I fall into the same category as this because I love a good cocktail. But when it comes to Christmas, I don't think it's something that people often think about, is it? I've got the list in front of me here of the most drunk things around Christmas from your research, and actually champagne and Prosecco is top of the list, which is probably no surprise, followed by white and red wine, yeah, it's still no surprise, then beers and non-alcoholic drinks. Actually, cocktails is only down at 7%.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I was really surprised when this research came out because I thought that a lot more people than a mere 7% would drink cocktails at Christmas. Maybe I'm a bit of an outlier because I love making cocktails at Christmas. But I'd like to encourage people to try and do it a bit more. I think cocktails can feel a bit intimidating, and they're not really.
If you are intimidated by sort of making your own cocktail, there's some delicious ready-to-drink cocktails out on the market. I know this year at Marks and Spencer's we've launched a couple of delicious ready-to-drink cocktails. We have a great range all year round, but my favourite for this festive season is our spiced clementine whiskey sour.
Oh, I've actually got that right here, so I might have to give this a try.
Even if you don't know, whiskey's not your normal tipple, but actually combining it with the spiced clementine, a bit of lemon in there, it's very warming for these cold winter evenings.
Well, it's going to impress people as well, because I think we go to so much effort to make the food side of things, don't we? And it seems like when it comes to the drinks, it's cheeky beer or something, and then that's it. But if you've got like something like this, I think it's going to impress your guests a lot. Anyway, I'm going to have to try this right now. So just popping the lid off the.
Have you got some ice there?
Oh, I'll have to go and get some.
Oh, really? Well, it's best shaken over ice and pour it out, so you get a bit of theatre going on as well.
Excellent. Okay, here we go. I've got some, so I'm just going to give this a little try. I must say it's a lovely colour and a lovely bottle as well to start with.
Yeah, it's a great gift for Christmas as well. Instead of a bottle of wine, take along a cocktail.
Ooh. Now that is spectacular. I can tell you that is spectacular. That's very, very nice indeed. And I've even got a little because this is the thing. So because I was thinking about cocktails, I was thinking, well, I've got to get some cool things to serve them in. So you know what I've actually got, and you're going to be very excited here. I've got some little bauble things, right? But they're little drinks holders. How cool is that?
Oh, that sounds exciting. Yeah. That is very clever.
Yeah, there you go. It's like a little bauble with a straw that goes in, and you just pour it in. It's cool. So
that sounds amazing. I'm going to have to get hold of some of them.
Yeah, I think you should. But no, that is honestly absolutely beautiful. I'm a fan of whiskey as well. But no, that's absolutely spectacular. That is. Yeah, I can tell you what. I'm going to get all my colleagues to try that as well because I think they're going to love that.
You're going to be the most popular man in the office.
I definitely am when they see this site. Yeah, they're going to think, oh, Ben, have we ever told you that we love you? They're very, very popular this Christmas. I mean, what are your personal favourite drinks then? Particularly if we're talking about cocktails, have you got a particular favourite out of the new range that you've got? Because I've got the cherry glog here as well, and I've got the clementine and cranberry Bucks Fizz as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think mulled wine is one of my favourites during the festive season. We've seen sort of mulled wine, mulled cider, even mulled rosé on the market. But at Marks and Spencer's, we've taken a lot of inspiration from the Christmas markets, especially in Scandinavia,
yes.
Where we're seeing them pop up all over Europe and even the UK. And one thing we found whilst travelling to these markets was a cherry glog, very similar to a mulled wine, still red wine based, but we've packed it full of cherry juice and some lovely spices in there. You still warm it, and I like to serve it with some sort of dried cherries and some almonds, and they soak up all the liquid, and they're delicious to eat at the bottom of the glass. But it's just a delicious alternative to mulled wine. I shall certainly be putting it in my thermos on Christmas morning while I go for that cold winter's walk.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think mulled wine is such a traditional drink as well. So it's to have a little spin on that. I think that's really cool. I think people think, oh yeah, all right, why not? I'm gonna have to give it a little smell actually, because it's. Oh yeah, that smells nice. That's very good.
Smells of Christmas.
It is. It is. To me, it looks like Christmas in a bottle. To be honest.
It definitely is.
Lovely. Well, I'm going to be drinking that tonight. Trust me. Imagine we've got someone thinking about the best kind of drinks to serve up, and we've got this fantastic range. But let's think about the presentation just for a second. So you said about the whiskey sour and the best poured over ice. You were saying about the cherry glog. It's lovely, but what would you think about the presentation for that? Just in a kind of traditional mug, and the Bucks Fizz just in a typical prosecco glass. Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a mug of cherry glog sounds very warming.
It does, doesn't it?
That's how I would serve it. Ladle it in with some dried cherries and some almonds.
And are the sort of festive range that you've just come out with? Are they available across the UK in M&S stores, so people can get them anywhere? I assume.
Yeah, our Christmas drinks are available across the UK in our stores. So yeah, just pop into any store and talk to one of my colleagues, and they'll be able to help you. Or just pop on the website. They're also available online.
Fantastic. So yeah, people can get them online as well. Excellent. And I'm just going to have to ask you one quick thing as well before I begin to let you go both. But that is, would you both have a song request for today?
Oh,
I know I sprung it upon you, but just because I was getting in the Christmas and festive mood now, especially now that I've tried that whiskey sour. I can tell you,
Does it have to be a Christmas song?
No, it can be any song at all.
Oh God!
You both get one choice. I know it's tough, but whilst you're mulling it over, I can just take another sip of the whiskey sour. So that's fine. You've got plenty of time.
I would go for I don't know if this is a very cheesy choice, but Elbow.
Oh yes.
Is it On a Day Like This?
I'll find it for you. Fantastic. Good choice.
I just celebrated my first wedding anniversary, and that's the song that I walked into.
Oh, congratulations! Fantastic. Yeah. Excellent. Well, so that's going to have to be on now. Excellent. And
I'd have to get the Christmas tune started. I haven't heard many on the radio. So I'd go for something like Wham! Last Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get it going.
Right, it's about time, isn't it? Come on, people. Let's get the Christmas
drink your mulled wine in your whiskey warmer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to have an absolutely cracking weekend now that I've got these drinks in front of me. So thank you for that. And yeah, thank you for coming on the show to chat to people. This is a thing, I think. I think, this is the beginning of the cocktail revolution for Christmas, I think. It all starts here, I think. Right now, today. Have a great rest of the day. It's a shame they haven't given you the cocktails to drink whilst you're doing the interviews. That's unfair.
We'll open them later.
Yeah. Thank you, Maddie and Rebecca, for coming on the show. Well, that's it, people. Come to the end of the show. Thank you very much indeed for joining me today. Thank you for tuning in. Big thank you to all of our special guests today. Honey Lancaster James, thank you to you. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks to Maddie and Rebecca, talking about the M&S cocktails. Thanks to Rochelle Humes. Thanks to Alison Sager. Thanks to Ross Noble. Thank you to Alex Masoodi. Fantastic talking about his work today as well. Thank you to Emily Duncan, who we had just a bit ago, talking about microplastics. Thank you to Hugo Tagholm, also talking about plastic pollution. And the biggest thank you of them all, of course, is to you. Yes, you. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. Have a fantastic Christmas. We're getting close, though. We're getting pretty close now. And all that's left to do for me today, really, is just to finish up with a couple of Christmas tunes, isn't it? Really, to help you get in the mood. So, well, that's what I'll do now. Now, as Rochelle, agreed with me earlier about the one of the best Christmas albums of all time, is in fact, of course, Rod Stewart. Yes, the golden voice of Rod is about to grace the airwaves, so just don't worry. I've got you covered, so don't panic. He's coming. And I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day and a brilliant weekend. An utterly brilliant weekend. Very festive. I hope it's really, really festive. And I hope as well that you get to try a couple of cocktails over the weekend as well. Just to push you over that edge into truly feeling well and truly festive. Have a great day, people. Thanks for tuning in.